When I was young, my brother and I built a boat with our father. We spent several years sailing and exploring the Patuxent River. And then I met Tony.
Peter and I spent many happy times on that boat, and so when we got married, we built a larger boat and ventured out into the Chesapeake Bay and its many rivers.
We crewed on larger boats with dreams of sailing the world, but then life took another turn.
Today, we look forward to retirement with dreams of leaving it all behind. Come join us on our journey to sail the seas.
Welcome. Today is almost April 15th, and we haven't filmed the episode yet. So we're going to address the one question that we get asked a lot. Why are we going through all this sailing training? You know, if I've been sailing since I was 9 and you've been sailing since we were dating, you were 16, why are we doing all this training? And that's a good question. The other question is ASA, the American Sailing Association certifications, worth it? So I'm going to start off with the first course, okay? ASA 101. That was the bare basics. We took that in Bahamas. What did you think of it?
I thought that was a refresher. It was good to do it because it brought everything back after not sailing for a while for me. So I think that's why.
It is, and I got the ASA book right here, and I'll scroll through some of the various things that the ASA won. It's called Basic Keelboat Sailing Standard, ASA 101. This is the beginning one. And it has things like identify the following sailboat parts, you know, like rudder, cockpit, cockpit, lock, fairlead, fender, dockline, bow, stern, you know, starboard, port. We knew
all the terminology.
Right, we knew all that.
Yeah.
Functions of the following sails, you know, the outhaul, travel, shackle, roller furling. We never had a boat with roller furling.
No, we didn't.
So we learned something there. Tack, clue, leech, downhaul, Cunningham. We never had a downhaul Cunningham. We did have battens. We never had a boom vane. Navigation rules. You know, the lookout, sailing vessels.
I think that was a good part. That was really important.
That was
Being
a refresher.
familiar with that.
For you, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, all of it was a refresher for me, but
Yeah.
that is so important, and you know, things can change and stuff. So I think that was like probably the most important part for me.
Skills. Some of the skills we had to demonstrate was putting on a life jacket, managing the sailors, the travelers, demonstrating its different points of sail, jibing, coming about. We actually performed man overboard. Remember that?
Yeah, that was really important too.
Yeah.
And that was rather an eye-opener. We never had a situation where we had a man overboard.
We practiced man overboard a lot on the other boat when we dropped things overboard and had to turn around.
True. But we never had a person overboard.
No.
And I think the most important aspect of that is having someone keep a line of sight on the person, because it is very easy to lose a person.
If there's two people, realistically, when we're sailing and we're out in the ocean, we're going to have these little personal locations on.
True.
We did learn on the ASA, we learned different things the way we used to be doing it, right? On a bigger boat, you tend to do things a little bit different. It's more about safety. On the Catamaran, which is a very light boat, very safe boat, you know, we sailed that boat seat of our pants probably 90% of the time, right? Remember, I don't like it with tilting.
I didn't.
But on a bigger boat, this was something. So we did learn a lot on that. We weren't racing. You know, I crewed on big boats racing, and again, that seat of pants. So that was something that we learned. So we took the ASA 101 course, and we learned something, right? 10%. We learned different ways to doing knots. We learned why we were doing some things. On a catamaran, there's a little bit different rules than you would have on a monohull. And we did learn ASA 101 on a catamaran, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was good. Then we took 4 of these courses, all in the Bahamas in 1 week. If you want to go back and check the episode, I think it was called We Are Certifiable, right?
Yeah.
I'll put the link in the description. The other course we took as part of that Bahamas trip was Basic Coastal Cruising Standard, which is ASA 103. I don't know what happened to 102, but and this was about it was the next level up, cruising sailboat terminology, and it's more about cruising rather than day sailing, I think. even though there's a fine line between them. And again, I'll scroll all these requirements up. There's quite a lot that we had to learn and demonstrate, and we were tested on this, right? ASA, you need a minimum of 80%, and we got 90 or above on all our courses. You had to show what a cockpit locker is, binnacle, rudder post, turnbuckle, compass, emergency tiller, ground tackle, seacock, windlass, self-bailing cockpit, that type of stuff. We had to go through and list all the safety equipment, the federal requirements for a 33-foot recreational vessel or larger, describe flotations. We had to learn the ASA recommended safety equipment, describe ways to keep gear and equipment secure and in their proper location. On a boat, everything needs a place, right?
Tip-top shape.
Ship shape.
Ship shape.
Everything needs to be ship shape. In
In
an emergency, you shouldn't have to be scrounging around looking for something. It has its place, and you should go straight there and get its place. We always kept our boat ship shape,
Yes.
right? We had to learn safe refueling procedures, the navigation weather, and this was very basic navigation weather, but we had a plan for it. We took depth soundings. We had to know the bottom types, hazards. We went over the lay aids and navigation again, ATONs, latitude, longitude, magnetic direction, measuring distance.
Was this the one where we did charting?
Yeah,
A
we
bit
did
of
some
charting.
preliminary charting. How to prevent undue magnetic influence. Don't put your iPad or computer next to the compass. Don't put refrigeration on or things that could affect magnetic bearings. Don't keep it away from the compass.
About 3 feet at least.
Yeah, but we learned something
Wasn't that
else
right? I think so.
too. Like the auto helm has a compass as well, and that's usually tucked around somewhere, and you don't want to interfere with that compass.
When you're storing stuff.
Yeah, so metallic
Yeah, be
cans
careful
and
of that.
tins and stuff like that. Don't be storing around your auto helm compass. So know where your auto helm compass is. Hoisting and unfurling sails. Some of this was review for us, but on a bigger boat for you, this was new for you.
I mean, and it's been a while,
It's-
so it's good to have practice.
And it's just a matter of doing it,
And feeling
Yeah.
it helps you feel more confident and stuff.
and not in emergencies,
And not in
gale
an emergency.
situations. Yeah. Hand signals. When you're we're going to have headsets, or they call them marriage savers, so we can talk to each other in calm voices
Yeah, so he doesn't
from
yell
bow
at
to
me.
bow and stern. And that was 103. So we took 101, 103, again, all on the same trip. 104 is called the bareboat cruising standards. And this is, I think, more about taking a boat, chartering a bareboat, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
that's true.
stocking it. So this was kind of nice. We've taken some boats out for charter, but we learned some stuff here, right? And again, all these requirements, I'll scroll in front of you, at least off to the side or something, or just overlay us.
I think
over
one of the
there.
things too you learn, not just for chartering, but for the boat, our boat, what kind of things do we need and when would we need them?
Getting a menu, provisioning for the 1 week, symptoms of first aid, causes, prevention of treatments for seasickness, fuel consumption, daily water allowances, safe galley procedures. Remember making sure propane's dangerous on a boat. Remember turning.
You have to remember
turning
that.
propane
Always
on and off.
important. Turn that off.
Marine toilet operations. These things had manual toilets, and this boat required us not to flush the paper. Remember that was
Yes.
the first time I ever been on a boat that did that. Seemed weird at first, but you got used to it. Some of these things were more detailed than what we learned in the previous course. Each of these courses built upon the basic other one. We had to demonstrate seamanship, methods of potential dangers of rafting vessels. For multi-hull, it's usually not a concern, but monohulls, the spreaders can get tangled up as boats go by and they wave like that, and the spreaders can go up. Multi-hulls, we have enough width, is usually not a concern. Perform duties of a skipper on a liveaboard boat. Locate and check the condition of all the federal equipment. Perform routine visual inspection. And this is probably something we would go through logging our water consumption, our fuel consumption, our mileage, our fixed,
It's
barometric
important to know
pressure,
all of that.
inspect the running riggings, inspect the ropes and all that, especially if you're on passage. This is something we would be doing at least once a day, logging.
And before
as
you
well.
ever leave the dock, you should inspect.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, of course.
We're going to have a checklist.
And in passage. Emergency tiller on the Seawind, we have 2 independent helm stations, so we don't really have an emergency tiller.
They don't have one?
If we have a helm that goes down, we just simply walk to the other helm
That's true.
and use it. They're independent, so that's nice. We don't have to try to dig up the emergency helm. And these were introductions. So a lot
Yeah,
of
it was
this,
definitely more of an overview.
yeah, a lot of this was overview for you and me. GPS and chart plotter, that was new for us. We don't have a lot. We always sailed with the old-fashioned way, right? Sight, smell, charts, right? Plot a boat into unfamiliar harbor or anchorage. Yeah, we did that. And review and learning more knots. So that's what we learned in 104. We're back. I rambled on enough about ASA 101, 103, and 104. But in that same weekend, we also took ASA 114, which is, what was the title of that?
Catamaran?
Catamarans. What's the official title? Cruising Catamaran Standards. Now, we grew up, we sailed multi-hull, so a lot of the terms in the catamaran are the same. You have the tripod rig, the fractional rig, all the multi-hull terms, which is a little bit to the floats, the amas, the nacelles. But there are some things that are unique to a catamaran, a seagull striker versus a dolphin striker. I didn't know that. Seagull striker points up, dolphin striker points
Down.
down. Exactly. Seagulls fly up, dolphins swim in the water. Load carrying capability. I know on a trimaran you always carry most of your weight low in the main hull. Center. Catamaran, same way. You try to carry your heavy loads in the middle
center,
on the
yes.
bridge deck, but you can also, the fuel tanks and the water tanks could be down in the middle, deep in the bilge as well, to try to keep the weight centered. So we learned a little bit with the cruising catamaran standards. I was glad that we were there. We were also on a catamaran, sailing the catamaran, so it was very easy to go through that class. One of the things that we did not really do sailing on a trimaran is reefing. Do you ever remember us reefing?
I don't remember you ever reefing.
We reefed twice. I remember reefing twice. We always sailed on the edge. On the edge. We held the sheets in our hands, and if we got too bad, I just eased them out. And we were always on the edge of the trimaran. But the
We
catamaran,
never tipped it over, but we thought it was going.
but the catamaran, the tipping points is you can tip a catamaran a little bit easier than trimaran, obviously. So we reef. You reef. It's called reefing by the numbers. If a wind gets up to a certain point, you plop a reef in. If it gets up higher, you plop the second, and so on to the third. You don't question it, you just do it. You reef by the numbers. Now, sea state can also cause us to reef as well, so it's not like a set rule, but we learned reefing. And this is a habit that we're going to have to get into, and that's what we learned on a catamaran. Maneuvering a catamaran, because of the 2 engines, it was quite easy. It pivots, you kind of drive it like a tank.
Because you use both engines to maneuver.
Yeah. So from that aspect, we liked the ASA 114, and we learned stuff. It wasn't review. Some of it was, but most of it was not. Our catamaran sailing experience previously was Hobie Cat. We sailed an Adel Cat 35. Me and my father almost bought that boat, but we did not. And we had the James Warren Tiki 24 that we rebuilt. And I sailed that. But that thing sailed like a barge. So when we walked up to the slip and the 18-foot trimaran was there, we took that out and we left the Tiki Cat in there. But that's it. Large trimarans, yes, we have experience, but large Catamarans, not so much at the time. So we learned a lot. So I really enjoyed the 114. And I'll roll through the requirements as well on this, so you can get an idea of everything you learn. I'll probably just go to the website, ASA website, and scroll through. Now, we didn't join ASA after that point, right? We did not.
No, we did not.
Because we didn't know what else was offered, because we knew the first 101, 103, 104, and 114. We did it all in a week. For us, that worked out very well. We had the sailing background, we had most of the experience, and we were able to get 4 certifications, and we got to sail a catamaran and in the Exuma. So it was a win-win-win for us. But people have come up to us and complained, saying, how can you take a boat out for charter if you only sailed it out a week? Well, for us, 99% of that was a review. But if somebody's first time ever been out a boat,
I could see that
sailing,
it would be a bit much.
Yeah, maybe I understand that half of it. Yeah, to learn all that and then to take a 40-foot boat out on a bareboat charter might be much. But for us, it was not. It worked out very well.
It worked out well for us.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I like that.
So that's not a problem for me.
When we first took the Seaman out on a charter with Captain Mike, we were kind of like hesitant to touch the lines or do anything. Whenever you're sailing with a captain, for the first time, you're waiting for the captain to bark orders out, even though we knew how to sail and everything. So we were kind of hesitant. But after we took this class and came back and chartered Seaman 1260, we were hands all over the damn thing.
That's true. We did have.
We were doing everything.
Felt much better
because we had the confidence of this class. We've been with Captain Mike. He had no problem telling us if we did something wrong or not, but we were able to sail and we had a great time, and hopefully we could take it out one more time before our boat gets here. So, did you enjoy the 114? Actually sailing on a catamaran in the ocean along the Exuma?
Definitely.
Would you recommend it? Yes.
I felt more confident. It gave me, I always keep saying that, but it's true. And it was an enjoyable experience. It really was. I would recommend it for people who sail monohulls to go for a charter on a catamaran. Try it out. You'll probably enjoy it.
You sail multi-hulls, and especially a catamaran, differently. You even sail a catamaran differently than you would a trimaran, but definitely is different than a monohull. They do handle different areas, different practices. So yeah, anybody who's looking at getting a catamaran, and catamarans are all the rage at the moment. Take this class, learn how to sail it, and I think you'll be happy. Okay, we're back with more ASA certifications. Earlier this year, we did sign up for some more certifications. We went to Sail Solomons, which is about 25 miles down the road from us, which worked out pretty well. And the first one that we signed up was ASA 105, and this is coastal navigation. This was intense. It was all about charting and plotting and some math about figuring out if you started here and you were sailing this course and the drift of the current is this, where you're going to end up.
And how to account for that.
Yes, and had to account for it. So
adjust your course for that.
We'll scroll the requirements again, like I've been doing below, so everybody can see the requirements. But we charted a lot in the bay to get back and forth. We never got lost, but this was a little bit different. When you're off the coast, when you're out at sea or out in the ocean, and you get struck by lightning, you're going to lose your GPS. You need a plan B, you need a plan C, you need a plan D when things go wrong. So plan B is basically know how to navigate along the coast. And what I learned, the number one thing I learned in 105 is what a sloppy plotter I am. And on the bay, I would go below, slop a plot, and then do the deviation, come up and steer it. But once I got to what the target I was aiming for within the sight, I just steered by sight, and forget the compass course. And you can get away with that on the bay, but you cannot get away with that on the coast.
When you're out at sea,
you're a far more accurate plotter than me.
That's because I have patience.
I have no patience. You want to discuss your view? I know it took up the dining room for what, 3 weeks. Our
Yeah,
entire dining room was my chart and her chart
and
on
we
opposite
extended the
ends,
table, so we had plenty of
so we
room.
could practice it.
There's a lot of symbols on the chart to try to figure out and remember, but you can always look them up in that chart number
Chart
one.
number one, yeah.
So there's that. It was very useful. They even discussed, dealing with fog and things, charting a course when there's fog.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to know where you are, especially if you can't see where you are. You always have to know. The line is, in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you're at. And if you don't know where you're at, you're already in trouble. So I liked the course. It was intense, I can tell you that. We went in there for the final. We were up, I think, till midnight practicing our plotting and charting and everything there is to involve. But we both passed.
I did better than Peter.
1 point.
1 point.
We were both,
was it two? Was it two?
we were both in the mid 90s, right? So yeah, I mean,
Most of the
we
time.
learned it. If you're going to get out there, you need to take the 105. So well worth the money. The other course we took earlier this year, I guess it was March, last month, was marine weather. Now, I literally thought that this was a class as, I look at a cloud, the cloud looks like a bunny, and they would teach me, oh, there's a nice bunny cloud, just go to the left of it and you'll be in fair weather.
In all fairness, I did not think that. Go ahead.
It was intense. I felt like by the time we finished this, we should be on the weather people on the news. We learned every cloud that there was. We had to read weather maps.
A greater appreciation for weather forecasts.
Yes, we learned. It was intense. We learned so much. It's hard to go into details. I'm scrolling the requirements below, but fronts, lows, highs, barometric pressures.
So for me, I think the takeaways were not just the weather itself, but how it interacts with the sea. And how land or other things
the wave
cause
conditions.
differences. Yes, and also in planning for weather, how far out can you plan? Where can you get the information from? And that's on shore before you leave. But then when you're on board, you're out at sea. How do you get your sources of information then? And things change and on an ongoing basis. It's just because it said it an hour or two ago. Of course, we know this. That's why it's called forecasting. But it made it more real. It made it more real.
It did, and waves. How strong the wind, how big the waves, the length of the waves, the fetch, true wind,
and also how like with your boat, what can your boat handle, and when to reef, when
how
is it
fast
safe
sails,
to go
what's your
ahead
polars,
and leave
right?
under certain weather conditions?
What's your polars? What if you get caught out there? How do you you need to identify what you're in and sail around it, or sail around the best part. The whole thing about weather is a lot of people says, oh, you're going to avoid hurricanes. No, hurricanes, you have weeks notice. You can steer around hurricanes. The purpose of weather forecasting is to make sure you have wind to sail in, to avoid the storms, avoid the lows,
point.
but make sure you have the proper wind to sail in the direction that you want to sail.
It's just as much, if not more, about finding wind versus avoiding weather.
So that was quite really intense. Cool. Again, we were up late that night studying, but we both passed. And once again, you beat me by 1 point.
Yes, this time
1 point. I think we were both in the mid 90s. I'm so pissed because the questions I got wrong, I knew the answer. I
Me
knew
too.
the answer.
There was a couple of mine
like that. I transcribed
we did both
them.
do good.
It was intense. I feel so much comfortable. I feel real confident that we're out there, how to predict the weather, how to forecast the weather, how to plan our trip with the weather
or
and
at
around
least
the
just
weather.
to be more aware of everything and know what to do, like have a plan in place with what to do before we leave and while we're at sea.
Yeah.
And I will say the best part of the course was after we took the test. Our instructor did a passage planning. Like, what would you do
Around
in
the
this
weather.
scenario? Would you go ahead and go? Would you take a different course? And if you are going to take, like, this was from the Bay, Chesapeake Bay area down to the Bahamas, right?
The Virgin Islands, somewhere in Virgin Islands.
But they were starting out for the Bahamas, weren't they?
Some boats went to Bahamas.
Anyway, the other idea is, what's a plan B? Like, do you know the ports along your route
If you have
that
to bail
if you
out,
had to, like,
if the
find-
weather changes,
yeah.
and a couple of those boats in that exercise did do that. So it was great.
It was
Highly
a great
recommend
course.
it.
I do.
If you're going
I
to sail
think-
offshore, take this course.
I
It's
think it was
intense.
extremely important.
Lisa Batchelor was the instructor from Kinetic Sales.
Very good
taught
class.
us
Very good
sales.
teacher.
I'm glad we took it. I'm
And
glad
so
we
was our other
passed
class.
it, but it was intense. I mean, we can read weather maps right now.
I think
you
these
know.
last two courses we took were
Right.
the most important ones so far.
Yes.
Truly.
Now, we've also been taking these seminars, and these seminars are sometimes free from ASA, sometimes you pay a little bit of money, but they're very inexpensive, and we're learning a lot there. We took the intro to dinghies and outboards with a seminar that was a one-night seminar. We took introduction to marine diesel. That was quite informative. That was multiple nights. I really enjoyed that class. I feel comfortable with diesels. We took a course called How to Start Your Cruising Adventure, which is just the preliminaries of things that you need to worry about or take care of if you're planning on really to go cruising 2-3 years from now. Take that seminar. We took departure planning and weather routing. That was more around predict wind and the capabilities of predict wind. And then I think next week, the 18th, we're taking passage planning basics. And these are taught by people out there doing this. This is their experiences over 20, 30, 40 years of sailing the world. Wealth of information. So if you can latch onto those. We are card-carrying members of ASA, right?
Yes, finally.
We did join. We believe in ASA. We highly recommend it. If you're thinking about going cruising out there and you're 3 or 4 or 5 years away, start now. Start these ASA courses now. You need to learn to sail, and progress up to the point where when it's your time to go out to sea, you're well prepared for it. So it was great. I highly recommend it. If you like what we're doing, hey, subscribe. Ring the bell and
Click like.
click the likes. Yeah, the likes has that. We have some exciting things coming up. We're going to the spring boat show. Hopefully we'll get on the elusive Sea-Wind 1190, get some video of that. That'd be great. We are actually starting the planning of outfitting our boat. We have finalized all the options. We'll do an episode on that. We're looking at dinghies. So we're going to do some analysis around dinghies. We're going dinghy over dinghies. So bear with us here.
We're hopefully planning
we have some
another
good
charter
episodes
or two.
coming up or planned anyway. Yeah, and hopefully we'll get another charter in on the Sea-Wind 1260 if one can make it up the bay here. So hang in there. Thanks. Bye. It's okay to say bye.